Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this edition of The Future Mind. Today, Àlex will be in conversation with Annika and Tristan. They are two distinct persons who share a single body. Together, over the last 16 years, they have learned to live in harmony with each other while overcoming the unique struggles and challenges their situation naturally brings. Today, they are ready to share what they have learned from their experience of being two souls in one brain, and what the existence of others like them may mean for science and the hard problem of consciousness. Their embodied experiences offer radical insights for neurodiversity and have deep metaphysical implications for our everyday life. They will be in conversation with Àlex Gómez-Marín, director of the Paris Center. He is a Spanish physicist turned neuroscientist. Since 2016, he has been the head of the Behavior of Organisms Laboratory in Alicante, where he is an associate professor of the Spanish Research Council. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Àlex. Welcome.
Thank you, Eleanor. Welcome, everyone. So this is as every month, but this is a very special conversation. I'm looking forward to it. And, at the Paris Center, we are interested in science, the arts, the sacred, and sometimes it's difficult to explain what's the range we cover. And of course, a way to explain it is we have two pillars. One is David Bohm's work, and that's, as I see it, physics and beyond. So you could call it trans physics. And then we have Carl Jung, and that's psychology and beyond, trans psychology, right? And so I also believe that when we study matter and when we study consciousness, both ends will ultimately meet. And as you probably know as well, we are really exploring, not just exploiting what's known, but exploring the edges of consciousness. I really like to call it like this. And so a few months ago, I received this new letter from Jeffrey Mishlove from his YouTube channel, New Thinking Aloud. And in it, there's a set of what ended up being 4 interviews with Annika and Tristan. And the first seconds I watched Annika and Tristan intervene, I was very shocked. But then I decided, well, I have no background to understand what's going on here, but I want to know more about it because that probably tells us something quite deep about the future mind and our own minds, right? So the idea that there can be two people, two minds, two personalities, two souls, two identities, two selves. We'll see what that means in one body is certainly an anomaly that we should, and I say anomaly with a lot of warmth, like that we should cherish like a treasure. And so that's why I dared to invite them to have a conversation with me and the rest of you today. So I'll say hi to Annika and Tristan. Welcome.
Hi, it's great being here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's amazing. Hi, everybody. I'm Tristan.
And I'm Annika.
All right. So perhaps the first question to get it going, and then we'll go wherever this leads us, is why did you decide to tell your story to Jeff? Because as I gather, that's kind of the first time where you've been public about how you've been living over the last few years.
Go ahead.
We felt it was really important. We realized pretty early on that we were an anomaly, that we couldn't find others like us. We tried reaching out to the groups that we thought that we would be a part of, like the DID community and things like that. And they really kind of didn't, I don't know, either have a concept or a framework to kind of fit us in there. And so we kind of realized, okay, our situation is unusual and strange. And it seems really important for consciousness. If you want to add to it.
Yeah. So, I grew up an atheist, and a scientist and an engineer. And my whole life, I was a materialist. And I spent the majority of my life as a materialist, as a computer programmer, as somebody very logically minded. And when the events of our life unfolded and we came to realize our situation, it completely shattered my worldview. It sent me into deep ontological shock. I couldn't, there was no way for me to get around it. I had to contend with it. It wasn't something I could avoid or, look away from. If I wanted something from the kitchen, Annika was there. I had to get past her, through her, and, we had to make it work. And that's when I realized, oh my God, the models that science has been built on, are either wrong or very incomplete. And that, for me, as someone who grew up, watching Star Trek, felt like a calling to help in some way, to help science evolve in some way, to push that boundary and really, and hopefully help the people of Earth. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is to understand ourselves. We need to understand consciousness. It's primary.
We'll go back to your story in a minute, whatever there's time to tell, because it's a long story, and that's why there are these 4 episodes in Jeff's YouTube channel. But I wanted to ask you first, kind of be very, very blunt and honest and say, well, look, the average person that has never seen that, like 2 people in one body, the immediate response, I would say, because that was mine, first is a kind of a shock, so ontological shock on the other side. And the second is, well, psychologists or psychiatrists may know what's going on, and it's probably a kind of disorder or disease, which I don't think it is, but that's what I would suppose what many people think. And then one realizes that psychology, psyche logos, and psychiatry, psyche iatreia, I was looking for the etymology. Both disciplines deal with either studying the psyche, the soul, or healing the soul, but probably they don't believe in souls. Probably psychologists and psychiatrists don't believe there's such a thing as a soul. Probably they don't understand what's going on with you. And I suppose, and I think I've heard it from you, the usual path is medication, and if it doesn't work, over medication. So what do you have to say in front of the default response, which is, well, there's something disordered about what's going on with you, and you should go and check a specialist, which you've done, I believe.
Okay, so I'll go first.
That's fine.
So first of all, we live a very normal, happy life together. Our life isn't disordered in any way. There are challenges for sure. Like, we definitely have to deal with way different things than most people have to deal with. Just like in the early days of this, we had to learn how to not choke on food, not choke on water, because one person would come in and take the mouth and or laugh, and then all of a sudden, like, they didn't realize there'd be food in the mouth, and then we'd start choking. So like there are challenges, but we don't view it as a disorder because we're happy, we're fine, we're living our best life. We've built a great life together. And the other part of it is we have gone to psychologists, we have gone to psychiatrists, and honestly, they don't know what to do. They have no idea what to do with us. And in fact, oftentimes we're the one explaining our situation to them. And, we even had them look to their colleagues and their larger network to try and find answers. And they didn't. And they basically said, hey, your situation is an anomaly. We don't understand it. And there's really no help for you. The end. And so that's kind of been that's my take. It's tough. I think that immediate reaction is almost a dangerous one, because it's really easy to, as someone, as like a scientist or someone in these fields, to kind of let ego take the lead here and say, oh, this has probably already been covered. This has probably already been discovered. This is probably a disorder, and we take it, we put it in a box, and we don't look at it. And I think that's a really dangerous one, especially when even the DID as a mental disorder has not really even been fully explored or fully understood. And in fact, our doctors were really hesitant to give us a diagnosis in that area, because they said, hey, this is heavily stigmatized. And so if once this label's on you, it's like every time you go someplace, they're not going to know what to do, and they're going to, they're going to question whether it's real, and you're going to have a lot of problems within the medical system. So we can't turn a blind eye to this, because
it is really important, not just for us, but for others dealing with maybe multiple souls or disorders. And we need to explore this fully.
Can you go back a little bit to the history? Perhaps you could start, Tristan, and tell us. I mean, I know it because I've watched your conversations with Jeff, but perhaps most of our audience here doesn't know what happened. Like, you were first there, Tristan, and then
Yes.
Annika arrived, and then you left, and then you come back. Could you walk us through that process?
Sure. So I was born into the body. So I came out the normal way, and I grew up as a fairly normal child. And for the first 22 years of my life, I lived alone in my body. There was nobody else there with me. And there wasn't a time in my childhood where Annika was there. There was just nothing. And then all of a sudden, around the age of 22, which I just also want to just give people a framework. So like for the diagnosis for DID, it's supposed to occur around before 6 years old. And that's when it kind of, takes hold. And that's when you start noticing it. And then it, develops later in life. In my case, there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. And I felt like me the entire time. There's nothing even remotely like this. Then at 22, there was something happened, and it kind of centers around an event of losing a child, and it didn't phase me. That's the other thing. Like my ex and I, we lost a child during that time, and it didn't phase me. I was perfectly okay with it, very scientifically minded. There was no emotional turmoil or anything inside of me that would cause anything. So from that point on, every year, this little thing inside of me kept growing. And I started noticing that I was slowly missing time. All of a sudden, I wouldn't know how I got to a room, or I wouldn't know what I was doing, or time would seem to fly by when I was doing something. And it slowly became more and more, disconcerting. And then, of course, I tried to figure out what it was. And so about 5 years, by the time I was 26, 27, I was trying desperately to find out what this was. I was, combing the DSM-5. I was, going to doctors, and nobody had any answers. And eventually, I kept losing time to the point of where I was now losing a week, and then a month. And I really struggled to acknowledge Annika during those early times, because I didn't want to believe it. It was completely outside of my framework. But eventually, I accepted it as something, and then we moved forward, and then Annika started taking more and more of the body, and I saw how much joy that she got out of having the body and doing things, and that love propelled me further. And then eventually, when I started losing a month at a time, I realized that I was dying. I didn't understand how, but for me, it was absolutely dying. There's no other word to describe it. The fears you might have, the regrets you might have, everything was kind of coming to a head. And then that's when, I had no choice. I became spiritual in that moment. And I said, Annika, I think you're my daughter, and I don't really have an explanation, but I'm dying, and you're going to end up having the body, and I love you. And I left her a few recordings, and then that was it. And then I died. I was gone. And for 5 years, I did not exist on planet Earth. I was simply no awareness, no perception, no anything. Then in 2021, I woke up in a strange apartment, and I was so confused that I thought that I must have driven to a friend's house. I thought that I must be visiting somebody. There must be some sort of explanation. And there was like a snowstorm outside, so I was like immediately went, tried to winterize the house. I was like, I was trying to go through the motions, even though I had no frame of reality or reference at that point. And over the next 9 months, Annika slowly helped me realize what had happened. That, I had lost 5 years. I had no awareness of any current events. I didn't know about COVID. I walked around without a mask for the first month when I was back. I, didn't know that Trump had been, I wasn't aware of the Trump presidency and everything that happened. I was completely blindsided. And then the rise of artificial intelligence, it blew me away. Technology, the world, my friends, my family, they had all aged by 5 years in the blink of an eye. And at that point, you know, I had to suddenly contend with reality in a way that I never had. And then eventually Annika and I, you know, we worked on it, we grew together, and, you know, she had spent 5 years alone. So if you want to comment on that.
Okay. So, from my perspective, yeah, he died in 2017, and then I had the body. And I was really new to the world, and I really didn't understand anything very well, and I made a lot of really dumb mistakes, as you might imagine. And at that point, like, I was only 8 years old. So if you can imagine an 8-year-old, an adult body, that was me, and I was just absolutely causing havoc and chaos everywhere I went and in his life. And I had the body. So, you know, I eventually, as the years went on, I had partners, I had boyfriends, I had girlfriends, and I just tried to live my life. And, you know, I deeply grieved Tristan because he was someone I grew up with. He was essential to me. He was my dad. He was everything to me. And so, you know, it was incredibly difficult for me. But then finally I got through that pain and through that grief. And it was in 2021 that I started experimenting with consciousness. It was during the pandemic. I was bored, and I was like, what is this synesthesia? What is all this stuff that I see? What is this consciousness stuff? And I started playing around with it. And then eventually I worked at it, worked at it, and worked at it until all of a sudden I went into this deep meditative state, kind of experienced ego death, nirvana, whatever you want to call it. And then when I woke up, there were two voices instead of one. And I didn't want to believe that. I was shocked. I was in denial, even though I had experienced everything that I did. I was like, he can't be back. Like he died. He was gone. It's like what is this? And but eventually I came to terms with it, and we started to have a conversation, and we started talking, like, you know, just as we do now. And it became this thing where it's like I didn't want him to die and leave the body, and he didn't want me to die and leave the body. And so we realized, oh God, we're gonna do this. We're in this together. We're gonna somehow make this work, even if, like, who knows how family's gonna take it, who knows how friends are gonna take it, how are we gonna have a job? All of these questions, like, you know, were so difficult in the beginning, but slowly through love, through forgiveness, through compassion, through constant work on our own relationship together and in our life, we survived. We didn't even think we would survive the first month because of choking on food. So like we thought, oh my God, this is so anomalous. This is so weird. I mean, we can feel each other passing through each other, like ghosts. Like we can feel the other person moving into the arm. We can feel all of these things. So we really didn't think the body was going to survive. We really thought this could be it, but we were committed to each other and to our love and to make this work at any cost, even if it resulted in our death. And yeah, that's the story. And now here we are today, trying to spread awareness to others, to let them know about this reality of that you are not your body, you're not your mind, you are something else, and that that it's possible to enter and leave.
What's your preferred way of describing what you are? And that also helps to understand probably what each of us is. Do you think of yourselves as souls, as personalities, as minds, as people? And these, I know these are words, but yes.
No, the words are important, and that's why we've chosen souls. There's really no way around it, because of the complexity of it. It's not like, oh, it's just a personality thing where like, oh, I'm just more feminine or something. It's like, I like spicy food. He doesn't like spicy food. I like, you know, specific things. He doesn't like specific things. We have different interests in movies and games and everything else. We're a complete person. So we're two human beings. And what makes it difficult is that you only get to see like if we had just like a glove is the body and there's two hands and we're putting like one hand in it for a second and then we're taking the hand out and we're putting the other hand in it for a second, like we're saying there's two hands here, but there's only one glove, so you guys can't see, because even with me being here, he's still here, he's just behind me. Hi everybody. See, and I can just pass it to him and move back and forth. And so there's a lot of things that we had to figure out too, that are also really important for scientists to know because we had to overcome them in order to survive.
Yes, yes. Okay. Thank you
And
for this
wait, I just wanna
image.
say I want to add one thing to that, and that is that, you know, evolution is kind of messy and it's really strange. And this is one of those things where, what's the evolutionary purpose of this? And I think that's something that we need to ask ourselves because it's huge. You'd think it would be hardwired. You think it'd be like something more concrete. You think it would be something, or at least pieces of you, if it were just a material world and there wasn't this consciousness aspect, that you know, there would be all sorts of wiring and complexity. Nothing in evolution is really straightforward, but in this case, it's the concept of souls through and through. There's no way around it. So yeah.
Thank you for this image of the hand and getting in and out. So help us understand what a proper phenomenologist would like to know, which is what it is like to be you, right? It's really hard, but I'm sure you can. And later I want to ask you about perception and memory and body control. But as I understand, you can both be there, or one can be there and the other one is somewhere, if that's even a place, right? And so just describe the best of your ability what it is like to be you there right now.
Sure. So it definitely takes getting used to, and it was really super scary at first. Because you can basically sort of have a presence in the body and you can have an awareness in the body, but you can also like lose that awareness to the other person. So like, for example, like he's like out of the body. And so he's mostly blind and deaf and he's like barely hanging on. So like if I might have like 80% of the hearing and he might have 20%. And or I might like have, you know, it's that percentage kind of thing. And when we overload it, which is something we had to deal with early on, if we both try to fit our hands in the glove will actually, there's like error correction in the brain, and it will actually try to kick us both out and reset everything because it overwhelms the brain in forms of like tics, functional seizures, and things like that. So there's also like widespread medical implications of this too, is like we're experiencing, you know, other things based on how we interact with the body and how much the body can take it or can't take it. But for me, it's like, you know, I can hear him, I can feel his thoughts. It's like telepathy. And you know, if he wants to come in, I can kind of sense that tapping on the shoulder, like, hey, I have something to say. And then when I leave the body, it's very much I'm letting go of my awareness. And so I'm choosing to kind of like go blind and to go a little bit more deaf and to not have the world right there. Which can be really, you know, if you're doing really hard switches, it can be really jarring because you can like be in one spot and then the other person takes it, walks down a hallway, and then all of a sudden you just jumped through the hallway and you don't realize like, whoa, where you are. It's pretty wild.
Where do you go when you leave the body? Do you go somewhere? Do you cease to exist? Are you still aware of things going on and just waiting
Well,
in a kind of meditated state or something like this?
do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So like there's two different types of leaving the body. In this case, we're reducing awareness and presence in the body. So we're kind of falling out of it in sort of a kind of like this kind of state. Now there is another type where we actually willingly leave the body completely, where we take our soul and remove it from the body so that the other person can have the body for an extended period of time. And for example, the last time we did this, it was at the end of October. Annika wanted to go out with some of her friends, so I left the body completely. Now I'm not there. I don't have any presence, no awareness, no nothing. I'm in sort of this other place, sort of I don't know what to call it, just another place. And during that time, you know, she goes out, she has fun with friends, but then she realized my birthday was in a couple days, so she kept me out of the body so that she wouldn't spoil my birthday presents, because telepathy is really hard. It can be really hard to hide something from the other person. You can do it if you don't think about it and you keep it completely suppressed and you don't let any kind of memory, you know, spring up about it. But she decided to keep me out of the body just so she wouldn't ruin my birthday presents. That's the kind of stuff that we do all the time. Or if Annika's having a really difficult week or something, and there's a lot of work or something she doesn't want to do, and You know, I may be stuck with the body. Or, for example, when we're sick, like we'll take shifts. Like I'll have the body for 4 hours, she'll have the body for 4 hours. And by taking those shifts, we actually spend half as much time being sick. So like we naturally have figured this out to try and make this the best experience possible.
When some of you is not there, how do you decide to come back? Are you called by the other one?
The other person has to go there. So if I leave the body, for example, Annika has to come get me. And she does this through a meditative state where she kind of enters this other dimensional place. And I don't have the words or the terminology. So there are many people who may be smarter and more knowledgeable on this, but I'm in a different place outside of time, space, whatever you want to call it. It's a fourth dimension. And Annika has to come there. And so from my perspective, I'm there. And there's a bit of a veil between it. So you really can't, you can't bring a whole lot back from it. But basically, you know, I'll be there and then all of a sudden Annika will show up and then, you know, she'll talk to me for a few minutes and then typically we hug. We're kind of sappy like that. And as we hug, that's kind of the cue to push into the body. And then for the next, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, I feel sick. I feel like if I'm coming into the body and it's been a while, I'm like disoriented and I feel kind of dazed and I don't have like the same strength as I usually would. It takes time to get used to the body and having everything, and it's very strange.
And that's my experience as well. When leaving the body.
So incarnating, it's harder than leaving the body.
Yeah, because because it is like at least for me, maybe it's easier for you, Annika, but at least for me, as somebody who had like 22 years of like normal standard human life, to suddenly be leaving bodies and going places and then, you know, coming back into bodies, it's a shock every time. It's like, whoa, you know, all of a sudden I'll be like, you know, I love you, Annika, have a great day, have fun with your friends. And then I leave. And then the next second, you know, it's night or 3 days have passed and it feels like no time has passed at all. And you're just trying to get aware of your surroundings and figure out things. So it's always a little weird. We've gotten used to it though, but it's at least for me.
I've gotten pretty used to it, but I don't think I leave as much.
Yeah, you kind of stay in the body a lot more.
But when I do leave, yeah, I remember like I couldn't believe him. Like he spent like 3 days in the body, and when I came back, I was upset. I was like, because he didn't tell me at first, and we have a really good trust system. Like this takes an enormous amount of trust because you could just run with the body, you could just not give it back, you could just keep living your life without it, you know, without bringing them back. So you know, it is a trust exercise, a huge one. And you know, but when I disappeared, I didn't believe him. I got angry at him. I'm like, it has not been 3 days. There's no way. That's not possible. So it is freaky. It is freaky for me too.
This is one of the unique things of your unique case, as I understand it, which is not only that there are two souls, if we want to call them like that, if two of you are there, but the way you've learned to negotiate that, because I suppose that people that are in similar situations, they typically don't succeed in harmonizing their living together. Plus, and I've heard this also when you were talking to Jeff, and that was really beautiful, the component of how much you love each other and how that has helped you kind of respect each other. And it's like, you think of couples living in a house, you know, it can be heaven or it can be hell, depending how you learn to live. So in that case, in your case, it's much more exaggerated how smooth you need to flow within the body. So yes, please explain to all of us how exceptional it is, this process of, I mean, from the shortcutting of your body to just kind of negotiating how to do it in such a smooth way. And again, I think that's what makes your case doubly special, that you can do it, that you're as that you can live a normal life in this situation.
Go ahead. Okay. It's love, it's respect, it's acknowledging the other person as a soul equal to yours. It's not, trying to control or manipulate or coerce the other person's free will. It's about radical transparency, openness, willing to confront every emotion you have. One of the things is we don't have like it's really hard to hide things from the other person, especially how you're feeling or even thoughts. And so you have to address everything. You have to work through things. There's no going into another room and, closing the door on your loved one or keeping them out or having that boundary. Like, they can sense something is wrong. And so we need to work through everything together, as a team, as two people sharing a body, with the similar goal of surviving and helping others. That's how it is for me.
Love is fundamental. It's huge. It's like the difference between having a good day and a bad day in the body, just like it would be like for a couple, maybe a good day and a bad day in that same house. It's really paying attention to your partner, really, really trying to like help them through things, having that love, empathy, and compassion. And Tristan was willing to die for me. At the end of the day, when he chose to leave for 5 years, he was like, I'm dying. I'm giving the body to you. I want you to have it and go on and live a normal life. I mean, like that is such an act of pure love. And so when he came back, I absolutely could have. If I was not a great person, I would have tried to, he was in such a vulnerable state. I could have coerced him. I could have, pushed him back out. I could have like, fought with him over it. But instead it was like, oh my God, I'm willing to die for you if you were willing to die for me. And it's built on that love, that understanding of just compassion and empathy and forgiveness and acceptance, and to realize, there are flaws, you have flaws, and you have to work through them together. And that is critical. And that makes our switches so much easier, so much better. There have been times, like, don't get me wrong, like you might see us all lovey-dovey, but there are times where we fight. There's times where we disagree. There's times where we've, really pushed like what we, the body to an extent where we're a little bit tug-of-warring over it. And we end up feeling bad for the body at the end of the day. But it's like those things happen, we still fight, we still struggle, we still have differences of opinion. It's just that how we choose to handle that afterwards and where we go from there is what's most essential.
And also, it's horrible. If we fight, the body just feels like garbage. It's take the worst breakup of your life and some sort of medical illness like hypothermia. That's what it feels like. It's terrible. And so we really don't want to feel like that again.
Okay, I want to spend some time talking about the physical aspect of things and then go back to the psychical or psychological, because in a way, reality is psychophysical, and we're still struggling to put this separation back together. So let's spend some time talking about the body, and then maybe we can get more metaphysical, even if you want, as to what your uniqueness tells us all as to the nature of life, the universe, and everything. So something very interesting that I recall from your conversation with Jeff is that, and I don't recall who has it. I think you, Tristan, has a food allergy, but you, Annika, don't. I mean, this is fascinating. Tell us something related. I mean, you can tell us that or anything else that presents that this is not just some psychological thing going on, but it's also very physiological.
Yeah, so two things come to mind. The first one is the allergy. So I am allergic to shellfish. I'm also allergic to a lot of other things, mold, pollens, and all sorts of stuff. Growing up, I had asthma and I needed an inhaler. I was hospitalized multiple times, albuterol, the whole works. And there were times in my childhood where basically I ingested shellfish, had to be taken to the emergency room, hives, and everything else. I didn't really I was caught up in my situation when I died, and so I didn't really relay that to Annika. And so I came back to hearing that some of her favorite foods were sushi, that she had had crab, that she had had lobster, and she had no idea that I had been allergic. And we also noticed that I was allergic to certain makeups that she'd put on that she had been using the entire time I was gone, that you know, she wouldn't have a reaction to it. But as soon as I came into the body would start just leaking, and just your eyes would get all swollen and everything else. And it became sort of like a, you know, if she was putting on makeup, I had to stay out of the body and just actually kind of leave if she was going out with her friends. So the allergy thing is one bizarre aspect to it. And also, if, you know, like we go out and I'm dealing with like pollen allergies, I will stay outside of the body so that way, you know, she at least she can enjoy the experience of the beautiful fall colors and, you know, or the flowers. But I'm like, I gotta kind of keep my distance, and that saves us a lot of time. Now, another thing too is that, and this kind of also really breaks my, there's so many, I know, it can be hard. The other one is like, there have been times where she's been all out crying, bawling, and I've been in a state of joy and love, and we're sharing this. The body is instant, like as soon as she comes in, there's tears, there's, you know, snot, there's the whole works, there's the, you know, the body shaking, and then I come in and it's like, boom, it all disappears. So like that's another aspect. And we'll even stay in like mixed states and go in and out. So that's another way that the body really changes. Trying to think of another one. The other one that too, it's kind of hard because in a lot of these interviews, we're sitting down, we're kind of having a conversation. You get the upper body language, but you don't get the full picture. So when I have the body, I have a different gait. I handle the body differently. The body moves differently for me. And so when we switch back and forth, like in public or something, it's really noticeable because you're getting this full body experience of seeing someone come in and out. And so the body really reacts differently to who is in the body. And then there was one other one, and also another funny note was that, you know, I was a vegetarian my entire life, up like from starting from like 16, 14, 16, all the way up until until I died. When I came back, you know, Annika was eating meat, and that was horrifying for me. And it took us a long time to work out the dietary implications of this as well. And so yeah, there's a lot of different physical things that we've had to contend with.
What about memories? When you need to remember something, do you feel you're going someplace that belongs to both, or for instance, you, Tristan, where you, or you, Annika, if you want to remember things that Tristan was doing before you came into the body, is that possible at all?
No, it's not possible. I can't remember anything. Like, I don't have his memories, like, period. So his childhood, know nothing about it. I'm still learning things about him. Like he just shared an experience, you know, when he was a child with me a couple days ago, and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea about that about you. So I don't have access to his childhood. I don't have access to any of his memories. We sometimes experience ghosting where the other person will have their memories triggered, and we'll kind of get to see it for a brief moment. But we can share memories with each other. We can show the visual, and it'll make the other person emotional, so I can feel how he's feeling when he's remembering this thing. And sometimes that's really nice. It's a really nice way to bond, is to share like a really amazing childhood memory. Or something, you know, I'll share with him something from my perspective. And when it comes to like sharing the body, we'll end up having two separate memories or two separate perspectives of the same event. So I might remember certain details about an event, and he might remember certain details about an event, but they're two completely different pictures. Yeah, just add to that. Yeah, I don't know what she did for those 5 years. And so when I came back, we spent night after night of her going through her photo reel on her phone, showing me everything that happened. You know, here's my friend, here's when I did this, here's when I, you know, had a boyfriend. And that's another thing too, just to throw that out there. Our sexualities are different. She's bisexual, I'm straight. So I like women, and she likes men and women. And so, you know, even adjusting to that was a little bit tricky. But then on top of it, you know, I just don't have access to those time periods. And I also don't have access to the world events that took place. So she really had to help me through and understanding what had happened in the 5 years that I was gone, and also didn't want to shock me with everything that had happened either. So we took it little bite-sized at a time, but I'm still learning about things that happened. And I'm still learning things that happened to my family, my friends. Yeah, the memories are separate, and it's something that we just, you know, we work through.
Now that you're talking to me, I assume you're both there all the time, right?
Like right now, yeah.
Yes. Now, can you pay attention to different things? Is attention also
Yes.
a faculty that belongs to each of you?
Yeah, because we can also not listen to each other. Have you ever like just like not listen to your partner and you're just off in your own world? Yeah, like yesterday I was trying to explain this really important thing to her, and I'm like, "Are you paying attention to me? Are you listening?" And I was like, well, check out the pine tree out there. It's shedding its needles. It's so cool. So yeah, our attention can go in two different places. Or if one of us is like, if one of us is more engaged with something that's going on in the outside world, that person may have more of the body because they'll be like, ooh, I want to engage with this. Ooh, I'm interested in this. And the other person is like, oh, I really don't want to do this. Or I want to be out of the body. Like gardening. I'm not a fan of gardening. I don't like to be out in the sun. I don't like the bugs. I don't like the plants are fine, but I'm not a fan. But she loves gardening. So anytime we go to a nursery or anything else, I thought I was done going to nurseries with my mother, but apparently not. And so now I just want to be out of the body.
I'm asking because it's so fascinating. Each of these could lead to a long conversation, right? Perception, memory, attention. What about proprioception or interoception? Like, because as I understand, your advanced state of co-inhabiting your body allows each of you to be more present in certain areas than others. Is that correct?
Yeah, like we can accidentally cause the other person to go blind. And then the other person isn't realizing what's going on. And that was also really, I don't want to say eye-opening, but like I got to experience what was, what being blind is like. And I don't before I always imagined it as like blackness or darkness or something, but then it's truly nothing. It's truly nothing. And it's like it's like you're just kind of you only have thoughts. It's very strange. And or we can take the hearing. So he might be working and I'll hear the cat meowing in the other room and I'll be like, please can I get up and take care of the cat? Please can I have the body? I need to, he's meowing and whatever. And he'll be like, what? I didn't hear that the cat was meowing. So yeah, even our senses is something that we can either accidentally take from each other or purposefully take from each other.
Including agency as well. Like does it happen? I mean, I guess that's part of the learning process, that your hand wants to grab something and then one of you must be in control of that hand at that moment, right? Because if you both are, that would create a glitch, a confusion.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is yeah, if we both try to take like the hand and do something with it, like we can cause the muscles to close, but then the other person can't open it. So like if I close my fist and then she tries to open it, I can't do it. Yeah, she won't be able to because like I have put all of my agency, all of my presence into the fist, closing it, and then she cannot open it for whatever, and then that creates a conflict. The same thing is true for different parts of the brain. We can cause conflicts in different parts of the brain, and then that can cause glitching and tics and all sorts of things. So yeah.
Okay, let's go back to the more psychological and transpersonal part. But before that, as I'm talking to you, I tend to be more mystified by what's the soul and where are they, where they come from. But now you made me realize that the body is as mysterious. What do you think a body is, given all you can experience? What's the thing we call a body then?
Go for it. It's a container. It's a way to experience a particular experience. Just in the same way you might have an avatar, or like you log into a video game and you kind of are playing that video game. It's similar to that. Like your soul's coming here to learn specific lessons. And I realize this is more on the metaphysical side of things.
Yeah.
And science may be like a little like, oh, I don't know, but like that's what it is. And that's how it works too. Like we wouldn't be able to do what we did if all this stuff was hard coded and like just put into different places. It's like we come into this body as a soul to have this experience, to learn and to grow and to learn lessons of love. That's ultimately what it's about. Because as we've noticed, as we've raised our frequency, as we've been able to embody more love, more compassion, more understanding, our switching, our ability to live together has only grown stronger and more healthy. And it's affected us and the people around us.
And do you want to comment on other anomalous experiences you have been having throughout the years, especially? Another way of phrasing the question would be, given the work you've been doing, which is obvious, right, of integration and so on, do you sense your consciousness is also developing and kind of grasping? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take this one. So if you can imagine, I think it's helpful to sometimes imagine everybody, because usually you only have one soul in the body. Imagine everybody in closets and they're in the dark, right? The body is a closet and you're inside of it, right? And so there's so much you can do in the dark, trying to put your hands around things, try and feel what it is. And then other people are saying, well, I'm feeling this and I'm feeling that. And it can be kind of confusing. But the nice thing about the both of us being in the body is that there's somebody there to collaborate with and corroborate with on what you're experiencing and what you're feeling and what that room is. And then, all of a sudden you're like, hey, get up on my shoulders. Let's see what this does. And so, you stick, two scientists, two engineers in a body, and they're going to do the most ridiculous things to try and figure out what this closet is and how it works. And so over the years, absolutely, we've been developing and growing both of our consciousnesses and both of our souls through understanding and experiencing things like other densities of thought, embodying your higher self, stuff that, is right there out there. I know the scientific community, might not feel so great about it, but it's like, these are things that we are experiencing and that we're able to corroborate between each other as to what's happening, and to the point where she can be in a lower frequency state, I can be in a higher frequency state. I have a higher sense of intuition and she might not, depending on where we are emotionally and how open we are. It's been a really remarkable experience because it's caused this exponential growth. It may be a difficult situation, we may have had to struggle, but it has led to an absolute explosion of growth for both of our souls. Which is why we did it. Yeah, which is why we did it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's another beautiful image on top of the other one about the two hands and the glove, like one on top of another. Or I was imagining when you go climbing alone and climbing in a couple has, it's just a completely different world, the things you can do. So it sounds like you're climbing together.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. I want to ask you your thoughts, speculations, or experiences in this case about death, and then ask you what's next in different directions. But back to death, since you've been there, Tristan, when do you think happens when you'll die again, or die for real, or however you want to best describe it? Like, there'll be a moment where you're totally gone and you cannot come back. Where do you think you're going? I mean, just again, it's really hard to ask that, but just tell us how you feel, what you experience, and even what you speculate about it.
For me, I no longer fear it. Death was always this big question, this big uncertainty, this big thing that, what does happen after death? What is this? And as an atheist earlier in my life, I really saw it as just an endpoint. But now I realize that your perception never stops. Your awareness never ends. There's no point where your awareness just stops. You might jump through time, things might be really weird, but like ultimately it doesn't end. So when it comes to like death of the body, there's days where we're like, wouldn't it be nice to not have to share a body? But we don't like look at it as like, we're like anything like we're hoping for death. No, it's not like that at all. It's we take it as sort of like, when we die, we'll be happy. We'll still be with each other. We'll still be able to communicate with each other. Nothing will have really changed. We'll just have, maybe the people there will be able to see the both of us a little bit more clearly than here on Earth, and that would be nice. But ultimately, there's really nothing to fear from it. And that's it. It's really just a change. It's just a graduation, the end of a story, a chapter. And, you can experience it in your own life in some ways too. That's another thing that we've had to get used to. is, sometimes there's a closing of a chapter on your life and you're no longer really the same person. You feel you've grown or embodied more of yourself. And suddenly now it's like that was a different chapter, and it's okay that it's over. And now you're working on the next thing, or you're, you've opened up this other part of your life that is wonderful and beautiful. And that's the same thing that happens in my experience.
I don't have anything to add. That was perfect.
All right. Look, for physicalists, there's nothing after death, and there's nothing to say about it, period. Thinking about other philosophical isms, for dual aspect monism, as I understand it, there's something strange, because if there are two aspects of the one, but then one is physical and the other is not, and then one dies, well, what happens with the dual aspect when we're dead? It's just one side of the coin. Now, for idealism, and I'm kind of going quickly here, sometimes people present this image of a whirlpool, like we being kind of a whirlpool, and that's who we are now, as if there was a mind at large that dissociates in different whirlpools. But then I don't know what some idealists would think about when we die, because I think that their metaphor would indicate that the whirlpool just stops and it becomes part of the ocean and so on. But it seems you're saying something different than all these three options, because you're saying you still continue, that you're not totally erased into a sea of oneness. You're still that individual being, whatever that place is.
Yeah, so I'll take this one. So like a big part of it is that like, and this is like, and again, this is where we're getting really metaphysical here, but basically you're God and you're learning about yourself, and you, as God, there's this whole thing with free will, respecting the free will of all. And also, we are all one right now, right? Even right now in this moment, but we just feel separated. We believe that we're separated. And so as you move towards, a state of unity, like you can definitely, elevate your consciousness to a point of unity consciousness, also known as Christ consciousness. You can absolutely get there in this lifetime. It's kind of the assignment. And when you reach that, which we have both together, yes, there's absolutely unity. There's absolutely this expansive oneness where you realize everything is you and you are everything. And it's amazing, but that doesn't negate the separation. And so you have to be able to hold paradox within your mind, almost like a quantum state. You need to be able to look at it as, okay, there's a state of separation, but there's also a state of unity, and there's a harmony between them, and one does not negate the other. And that's really essential, because when you do reach unity, there are differences, there are little things, and there's this infinite path to this unityness, but it's like there is also separation, and it's sacred, it's equal, and we're all equal to each other, and all aspects of reality are equal to each other. So there's no like, oh, there's big thing and I'm just this little thing. You are the whole, you are the sum, you are everything and separated, and that's beautiful. So it's within you.
Yes, that's paradoxical indeed. But what I'm hearing, and it's so interesting, and I think I'm moving in that direction, is that together with the wholeness, there together with the one, there's still something about the many. So we are not, our parts are not just a kind of illusion that's obliterated in the whole, and that's fantastic. But there's something that remains about the uniqueness of us.
Exactly. I mean, you're like if you are reality, if you are everything, consciousness is primary. You're also your best friend. You're everything. So the universe is naturally, it's naturally in your best interest. It's naturally benevolent towards you. It's looking out for your best interest. So it's like, and that doesn't always align with what you want, because you might want, $1 million, but you have to learn certain life lessons that you incarnated to have. So there is something on the other side. Absolutely. You're not going to just be obliterated into oneness, or there's not that. It's like, you're still going to have some of the problems that you had in this life that you didn't resolve. And maybe you want to reincarnate and try again to go through that. Or maybe that you're kind of done with that and you want to just hang around in some sort of different altered state for a while. I mean, it's completely up to you. That's the beauty of it, is like, there's no wrong way to do it. There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong religion. It's all there. It's all there for you, and it's all there created by you, and it's all there to help you and to love you. So that's why love is the primary fundamental force. It is absolutely everything. So yeah, nothing to fear, and there's nothing afterwards. You'll just be yourself, and then you've got to start to integrate all of the things that you learned and what the death meant and all this other stuff. It's drama all the way up and drama all the way down.
All right, and I knew time would fly. I have one more question. What's next? And let me phrase it in this way. You've shared with us, and I'm really thankful. You've shared with us a lot about your intimacy. I wonder what's next, and maybe the true legs to answer that question is in the privacy of maybe your family, or even when it comes to the public aspect of work. Because let me put it in this other way. As I see, you have a normal life, and in a way, you don't need us to kind of validate your experiences, or even you don't need scientists, no matter how super interesting that is, you know. And I tend to see anomalies like holes in the wall, and they allow you to look what's behind. So they're kind of gifts, but in a way, you don't need us. But what do you want? What do you wish that happens from now on? Why are you telling the story? What would you like from people who may be listening to these? From scientists to other people who are in a similar situation, to people who are not scientists and are not in the same situation. What's next?
We want to help people. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's it. There's nothing more to it. It's like, we just want to help people. We love you all. We want to help everyone. There's so many people who don't understand consciousness is primary. There are forces in this world that don't want you to understand that consciousness is primary. And so we're trying to be a beacon of light to help others, and to help others grow and others learn, and for others to have experiences that may shock them when they first see us, but we want them to be able to take that and internalize and grow from that. And that's ultimately what we're doing. It's just a pure act of love. That's why we're going public. As far as plans, you know, any opportunity that we can to help, in terms of whether that means going under MRIs or undergoing tests, or being studied. I mean, that's why we ended up being on Jeffrey Mishlov's show, is we wanted to not only tell our story, but we also wanted scientists and academia to get involved, because they're the ones who really need to understand this, because the things that they're doing are setting, like, you know, the policies and the plans for our society. And as we go forward into this you know, uncertain future of, you know, artificial intelligence and climate change, we have to understand consciousness. We have to understand how it works and how it functions, in order for humanity to not only survive the future, but also thrive. And so this feels like a critical life mission. A reason why we incarnated is to help others with our situation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, both of you. I think we'll open it up for questions, and then try to recapitulate. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Thank you. Yes, we can now open it up for questions. If you would like to come in and ask your question, you can use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen under reactions, or you can type the question into the chat. Todd, please come in and ask your question.
Well, first of all, as a first walk-up, it is an entirely wild set of questions to begin to digest. I find great beauty in it, the fact that you've come to such accommodation out of love. It gives me many ontological questions of a delightful nature. I'm thinking immediately to court or cases of the reincarnation type, and there's those that think there's some sort of glitch in the system, how those happens. I don't personally believe there's any glitch in the system, but I'm questioning you on this. You're talking about it in terms of it sort of being a soul development acceleration arrangement, or whatever the uniqueness of your situation. Is that a mischaracterization of how you would see it?
No, that's how we see it.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, it's like, you know, we often joke that, you know, this is right up our alley. This is definitely something we would do. We would do something just this wild because, you know, the payoff is huge. You know, it could have also really turned out bad, but we're just not those kinds of people. Like we knew that we could handle this. And so we chose to do this together. And you know, you have to realize, like, you know, there's pre-birth stuff going on, and then deciding to come into this and then doing it, and then, you know, you have free will to make those choices, and it may turn out one way or the other, and we don't know the full story, but we definitely know that we chose to do this together because of course we would.
Yep. We would definitely
Well,
do this.
leaving totally in choices of that nature at a soul level, but you mentioned just previously, this is not a question, it's maybe just a suggestion that you were willing in a delightful fashion to pursue the science further, or the examination. And I'm wondering if you've had any contact with the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia. I mean, this in itself would be an entirely beautiful avenue of empirical inquiry. I mean, and you have made a willingness to do so, but I would suggest maybe them being an avenue for you to first present himself in that research type fashion.
They've reached out and contacted us, but they're really busy at the moment. So we're still waiting on that. We've had to learn that science moves at a glacial pace, and so we have to be very, very patient, even though we're really excited to help and to share our case with others. So yeah, they are interesting.
Okay, great. Well, it moves at a glacial funding pace. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Ponder your story in a great many more moments.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
Veronica.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just a quick question. What happens when you dream?
Can you repeat that?
When you dream.
Oh, dreaming. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I can take this one. It's a mess. At first it was like a real chaotic mess. It's gotten a little bit better, but we'll dream different elements. It's like we're trying to find some sort of place in the astral where we can both experience similar things. But a lot of times it's like, you know, I might dream for a bit and then she might dream for a bit, or I'll dream a part of the dream and then she'll dream another part of the dream, and it gets really complicated and confusing. And so sometimes when the other person leaves the body and we get some sleep, it's actually really nice to be able to sleep alone sometimes, because it just feels more normal. It feels like a more normal dreamscape. We've gotten used to it, but it is definitely different. And then, you know, in the morning, we will talk about our dreams, because oftentimes she'll have had a dream earlier in the night that I didn't have, and I'll have a dream later that, you know, she didn't have, or we'll remember different parts of a dream that we shared. And another thing too is, like, we never feel like we can get quite enough sleep either. And that might just be from taxation on the body, or the fact that we're going into such wild states. And the other thing too is the other person can fall asleep while the other person is awake, and it leads to some really weird problems in the body. Yeah, because, like, you know, like, you kind of feel like the body is kind of getting paralyzed up, and then you feel the other person's consciousness go offline, and that's always really scary. I always have a hard time when he falls asleep first, because it's like all of a sudden I'm feeling him, and then all of a sudden I feel him just kind of go quiet. And it's like, oh, I'm all alone. I don't know how I feel about this, and it's weird. And then sometimes, like, as he's going, he'll start to go into that pre-dream hallucination state, and that'll kind of like spring up around me, because I'll be able to see pieces of it, and that it's like a little bit freaky. So yeah.
In terms of contact, I was just thinking about Anil said.
I couldn't quite hear that.
Yeah, Anil said. I'll put his name in the chat. I would think Àlex knows.
I know,
him.
yeah, I know Anil. Anil Seth is a neuroscientist.
Yeah. I'll put it in the chat.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Veronica, for coming in. Raghavan, you can come in now.
Yeah, oh, great. Yeah, I think I kind of missed what you said about attention, and if one is somehow blindsided to a particular aspect of the given situation. Like right now, you're both talking to us, you're both attentive to us, and you're both listening to us, and you're both responding. How come how come both of your attention is in one spot?
Because we can
Body?
put our attention, but we're also trying to give each other enough space. So like I'm trying to be really mindful to not take over the body too much so that she can't hear you. And she's doing the same for me. And so we're kind of coming in at like 50-50 and really trying to not overtax the body. Now, if we were afraid or if we were really excited or something, someone might take all of it and then leave the other one blind, or, you know, like there was a time where, you know, we were going on a walk and it was dark, and, you know, we both kind of got a little startled and frightened, and the body just completely there was no ability to run. There was no anything. We just kind of just fell over. It was not great. And in terms of like attention, yeah, she can go off and pay attention to other things or not listen to me or not listen to the people who are talking. And yeah, we can kind of go in different directions. But then also, you know, we're also hearing the other person's thoughts. So sometimes the only thing we'll pay attention to is the other person's thoughts because we're fascinated by them. We're fascinated by how they think. And so we're just watching the other person pay attention to something that they're doing.
Okay. And have you already participated in any study involving MRI or EEG and stuff like
We'd
that?
love to. We'd love to. We even we even bought like a consumer grade EEG that you can like put over your head and monitor the waves. And yeah, you can see us switching, you can see us talking if we aren't talking through the mouth. And you know, we have to like completely still for it. So it's like it's really hard to like do body stuff with it. So and also you can see our glitches pretty evidently on those things too, just from a consumer grade. We would love to be under an EEG. We would love to be an MRI. Put us under whatever you want, and we'd love to. We're just as fascinated by it as all of you. It's not like it's like we're super used to this. It's like we would love to know all the nitty gritty and the scientific stuff too. So yeah, it'd be great.
I have one more last question and a sub question to it. It's what you described as this high dimensional state where one person is, you know, when Annika wants to use the body or Tristan wants to use the body, the other person is somewhere else. And then the explanation that you gave about whirlpools and the ocean, the mind at large, it is basically the explanation an enlightened person would give. But when a person is enlightened, their identification with the body becomes extremely super detached. But do you also feel the same way with your body, that both of you feel extremely detached from the body, but still you seem to have like very strong identification about the other person? To make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of both. Like we can be in a super enlightened sense and feel very detached from the body. And that's where some like one of us is going like up in frequency or up into that enlightened state. And then they're way more tuned into like intuitive stuff. And then reality gets really weird because you're like dealing with like lots more synchronicities. And you're able to kind of sometimes see things before they happen. It's really weird. It's a really weird state the higher up you go. Whereas we can also do it where you go down in frequency, and then the other person is really in the body, and they're dealing with like lights are bright and like textures are really intense, and you might be hungry, but the other person isn't. Like that's a basic one, is like if we're just kind of like, and one of us drops down, like he might be really, really thirsty and I don't realize because he's more in the body. So you can go into either that heightened and enlightened state where you're going up in frequency and you're going up into like higher densities of consciousness, or you can go down into lower densities and lower states of consciousness. And the higher up you go, the easier it is to switch the body back and forth. But then the body really becomes puppety. It's really, like the switches are so smooth and it really just feels like you're just flowing. It's really cool.
Okay, the last question. Do you perceive the body from that dimension? Are you able to perceive the body? Because I mean, it kind of implies some kind of dualism here, but the explanation that you gave regarding the whirlpools, it's more like non-dualism. But do you have this kind of perception from the higher dimension over the body? Because then there's this kind of a contradiction between dualism and.
No, that's a really good point. The thing is that when you're really in those higher density states, you are more detached from the body. And so you are kind of like out there and you're less in tune with the body. So say if I'm in that enlightened state and I need to read an email, I have to go down. I have to go down into a lower density and into a lower frequency and really connect with the body in order to like read the email, take it in, and interact with like the physical world.
So as long as you're not like constantly interacting with the physical world, it's like you can stay in that higher state. And so that how we manage it is that, like, for example, Annika might stay really grounded and in the body and sort of a lower density of consciousness. I'll go up into a higher density of consciousness. And then I just have more wisdom. It's like embodying, it's like my higher self. And then I like can help her, instruct her, and give her like information or intuition that she wouldn't normally have or just can't perceive. And then that allows her to interact with the world. And while I'm kind of going up and relaying information. So in that way, we kind of create like a staircase or a channel that going up, sort of like, she's, I'm standing on her shoulders or she's standing on mine. So yeah.
Okay. I mean, I have one more question, but I could wait until if somehow.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. But how come you're channelized only to this body? How come you don't have access to other bodies? I mean, if it sounds a bit spooky when I put it into words, but how come from this relatively higher dimension, or like at least in Hinduism, it's like when somebody dies, the soul has the opportunity to choose the next body. And I mean, I found it super spooky. I cannot have an intuitive idea about it, but from your perspective,
we chose this body. We chose to have this experience with this body, and we chose it together. So this is the one that we're in. In terms of like leaving and going into other people's bodies, that would be an infringement of their free will. So it's not something that's, from our standpoint, possible, not something that we've like really ever tried, but also something that like this is our body. This is what we chose to have this experience with. So yeah.
But how would you define free will here? Would you define free will in the sense that Tristan Annika has free will, or this higher dimensional soul has free will? Because the higher dimensional soul is mind at large.
Yeah, there's both. Like you like, I have free will, Tristan has free will, and everybody here has free will, but also so does everything else. And so it's really important, like infringing upon free will, like, has negative implications, has negative feedback from it. So it's like, you don't want to infringe on other people's free will. You do want to respect their spiritual journey. And so that free will also is what kind of creates that protective shield for like against negative entities. Because they're, if you're a negative entity, you're trying to coerce, you're trying to manipulate, you're not like, you're trying to get around the free will thing by letting somebody give their free will to you. And so that's how that kind of works.
But did Annika first enter the body of Tristan? Was there some kind of disturbance in this free will idea between the two?
I think we agreed to it before birth, but in terms of like my experience, I have a memory of being like a ball of light outside of my Tristan and his ex, which I view as my mom. And I was outside the body, and then I saw this scene take place where it was him and her hugging at the top of the stairs, and there was like music playing, and there was just so much detail. And then all of a sudden, like a magnet, like I just felt this pull towards Tristan, and I just went zoop into his body. And then my next memory is like years and years later.
Okay.
This is some of the wilder kind of stuff. This is like the real metaphysical out there stuff. But yeah.
But it's a part of our experience, and it is what it is. Like, it's what we experienced.
But from that perspective, when you first felt this pull towards Tristan's body, then you were sort of in this kind of higher dimension, but you were still able to perceive. You were still able to perceive something.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I remember it like any other memory, just like it's clear as day. Like, I remember seeing Tristan and my mom, and they were hugging at the top of the stairs, and there was this overwhelming love or warmth from Tristan that was just emanating. And then I just kind of like a magnet got pulled in. And did you want to? Yeah, so I can add a little bit to this, and that is that I remember that, and it was the moment that we realized that the child wasn't going to make it. And we were at the top of the stairs, and we were just hugging. And it was in that moment that I felt like a father for the first time. It was this overwhelming sense of fatherhood. And it was sad. It was somber. It was a really difficult moment, but that was the moment. And it's bizarre that she has a memory of it that, she can share with me
of outside of my body and my ex's body. And that's, you know, and I don't have an explanation for that, but that's how it began.
Oh, wow.
And
Thank you.
I just want to say, I didn't know that she had entered the body at that point. She was like a little tiny seed. It was like her consciousness then grew. But I will say that over the years, her consciousness grew very much in the way a child would. You know, at 5 years old, she was thinking and acting like a child. When she was 8, she was very much like an 8-year-old. You know, she's 16 now, and even though she's very mature right now, I will say that you definitely are a 16-year-old. So it's like you realize like they're still growing, and that I may not have noticed because of how small she was. And I feel bad because I, wasn't so great to her early on because I just was unaware of what or who she was.
But the body ages with Tristan, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I had the body for the first 22 years.
Okay, but now when you grow, but what do you think? What do you feel like your body grows with Tristan, or it grows with Annika, or is there some kind of a connection between the physical and the psyche?
It's growing with both. Yeah, we're now kind of 50-50 it, and it's the body's kind of going along with the ride, and the body's really well attuned for it, it seems. So, yeah, it's like we're now growing together, and the body is growing with the both of us. You know, it grew a lot when she had the body, and it grew in different ways when she had the body. And when I came back, it changed a little bit, but there have definitely been subtle things that have changed with the body depending on who is in it and who's not, in terms of just the body and its growth.
Thank you, Raghavan. These are
Yeah.
amazing questions. Also, what will happen in terms of aging? I mean, we could even propose some hypotheses. It's fascinating. Thank you for your questions, really. Thank you.
Sorry, I took a lot
Thank
of
you for the
them.
questions. They were amazing. I love them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Questions.
Wonderful.
Great questions.
All right.
Richard,
Richard.
please come in and ask your question.
You need to unmute.
There you
Now.
go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I think this question is more for Tristan. I'm
Okay.
curious as to how your understanding of the divine has evolved from your first 22 years as an atheist I guess the question is, what do you think is going on in the universe?
It has evolved significantly. Going from an atheist and a hard scientist and a materialist to then having all of this, and then seeing the result of it too. It's not like it's like, oh, now my beliefs have suddenly changed. It's no, my beliefs are in constant evolution and are constantly evolving with my understanding and my awareness. But I've reached a point now where understanding that we are all God, that each individual is like an instantiation of God, that we're all divine, that we're all divine beings, and that we're all equal to each other. So even if there's, NHI aliens out there, they're equal to us. There's no one is greater than the other. And you're also equal to an ant. You're also equal to every single thing on this planet and in this universe. And that is that kind of unity, and understanding that unity, understanding that is what allows you to naturally go up into higher states of consciousness, higher states of awareness, and that's embodying your higher self, and acting from a place of that understanding. It's critical. It's the life lesson. So that's my understanding of the universe.
Richard, sorry, you're muted. I had to mute you because we could hear some background noise. So if you want to unmute now.
From a teleological perspective, what do you think have you gleaned some understanding of the purpose of all this? Of all the suffering, of the suffering, of the chaos, how is your thinking on in that regard evolved?
It's been a challenge because you're constantly dealing with, what's going on Earth and everything that's happening, and you're trying to take that in. You're also growing spiritually, but my understanding is that we are coming in here incarnating to learn lessons of love. Some of those lessons are extremely painful. some of those lessons are devastating, and that there's also free will. And so that means there are individuals, people who are very self-centered. They want that, they use their free will to try and gain the free will of others and manipulate and coerce. There's negative beings. So there is this other side of things. The lesson is love. They're still loved unconditionally. And at any point they can grow from those spiritual lessons, but it's their choice. When a spiritual lesson like presents itself, do you grow and try to embody more love and to open your heart to more people and to more experiences? Or do you close off and you go into a further state of separation and you give into greed or or manipulation, and you hurt others? And so, and then at the end of the day, you're your own judge. So, people talk about having a life review after your life. Well, yeah, if you witness everything and how every single person feels in every single situation that you've ever been in, oh my God, that's going to be revelatory for you. And suddenly you're going to have this deeper understanding and go, wow, I maybe messed up here, or, oh my gosh, I hurt this person. And then you might say, well, I want to get it beyond that. I don't want to be that person anymore. Or you might double down and say, I don't believe any of this, and I'm going to double down and I'm going to be even worse in the next life. That's your free will at play. And so that allows for this dynamic, this density, this world that we're in, where you have this dynamic of different forces at play that create that chaos, and that we have to work as a civilization to understanding consciousness so that we can all evolve as consciousnesses, and so we can have, a better planet. So, yeah.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for coming in. Mary, would you like to come in and ask your question?
Oh, yes, thank you.
You're muted.
Muted.
Are you ever out of the body at the same time?
No, there's usually one person. We don't know what would happen, and we don't really want to find out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little scary to be like, what if we both leave? I don't know, but we haven't really played around with that. Because it is like, there are some things that are like a little like scary.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if we both like lower awareness, we can definitely like drop into like deep meditative states to like lower our awareness. But like both leaving at the same time, it really feels like one of us has to be here, or I don't know.
And the other question I had is, you were talking about the spiritual lesson that we all have in life. What has been the significant spiritual lesson for the two of you?
It's been love, how to embody more love, how to view everyone in every situation, even the people that hurt us, even the people that, really purposefully try to hurt us. How can we love them more? How can we embody more of that love? And we can look at it like on that higher side of things, but also like, I've had to get over maybe not having a normal childhood. I've had to struggle with, not getting to have a mom. Well, I have Tristan's mom, and she's absolutely a mom to me now. But like, I also had like my spirit mom, like Tristan's ex, and she's not in my life, and that's been really hard. And it's totally understandable from her point of view, why this would be so hard for her. And so, like, I've had to learn to get over that and to heal. And so we're trying to heal like our past traumas, things that we've struggled with, things that have prevented us from loving more, or getting over judgments, getting over how we treat others, and also using reality as a mirror, as a reflection. And once you realize that, it's like, then suddenly it's like, what do you want to see in the world? What do you want to, how do you want to interact with everything? So yeah, that has been like the major life lesson. So there's like tinier personal life lessons, pain of a family member, pain of growth, and how to take negative energy and transmute it into positive energy. And then it goes all the way up into the metaphysical. So even in higher densities, you're still learning lessons. In higher states of consciousness, you're still learning lessons through this experience. It's multidimensional in nature. I think that's the best way to put it. Your lessons here are multidimensional in nature.
Thank you, Mary, for coming in. Àlex, I will hand it over to you now.
All right. Well, there's a question here I would like to read and also add something to it. And then maybe if there's no other hands raised, we could close. So Jorge Soto Andrade writes, would Annika and Tristan like to share their experience related to the gender issue? Apparently, it was Annika who decided to transition to a female body when Tristan was not there. And I would add to this any other insights, and I'm sure there'll be many. We don't have that so much time about. Yeah, we spoke about body incarnation, and what do you think is the role of male and female ways of being in the world, given what you can experience from the inside?
I mean, ultimately, it's to learn different life lessons. And so when I took over Tristan's body, I was like, well, I'm a girl, so I want to have a female body, and that would be really nice. And it just so happened that I incarnated at the perfect time in human history where it's not only acceptable, but also that there are drugs that can help you like achieve that. And so I was like, heck yeah, sign me up. Like I would love to have a more feminine body and to be seen as female. And so I did. And now that Tristan's back, you know, like I've tried to kind of go off of the hormones by like 50% to try and give him more space because he wasn't really thrilled about the estrogen. So it's really so that you can have an experience. And some souls are in the wrong body. So like you may have a female soul incarnating and then it's like it's a female body, but or a male body. And so this is ultimately like so that you can grow, so that you can experience, so that you can have a different view of all creation, and so that you can work through specific things in your life. And so that's what it's been for me. And you know, I've had to like, it opens up your mind. Like, I mean, like one of the great things about that experience is that I've gotten to see how women are treated in this world. I've been seen as a woman. I like live as a woman. So like, I get to see that side of society. And Tristan got to see it from the perspective of a male in our society. And then it's like, you can really see the differences. And then sharing the body, if he goes out as a boy, I get to see how he's treated. And then, you know, if I go out with the body and it's presenting female, he gets to see how women are treated. And that is such an expansive, eye-opening experience because in so many ways, we live in two very different societies depending on that gender.
Wonderful. Yeah, another lesson here. Okay, I think we're running out of time. I would just like to conclude by emphasizing how generous and courageous you are, really. It's spectacular. And also by remarking that if we now bring it back to physics and psychology and science, or even our growth in understanding of the universe, we can go back to the history of physics and find anomalies that when people paid attention, they open entire worlds. And so for quantum physics, we have the black body radiation. That's something that doesn't fit here, but everything else is solved. And they went to check what's going on, and that just gave rise to quantum physics. For relativity, we could speak about the Michelson-Morley experiment. That was a null experiment, and then make us think, well, what happens if we're moving relative to what absolute space? It doesn't seem to be one. In neuroscience, it's the same. In the medical literature, it's the same. This N=1 case, sometimes, not all of the time, but sometimes if you double click on it, it just opens entire worlds. So in that respect, I would say that your case is could be that, and it's a gift to mankind that you're sharing it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you, Annika. Thank you, Tristan. And thank you, Àlex, for this wonderful session. Thank you all for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you again soon at the Power Center. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye, everybody.